Good morning. There we go. You're all awake. It's the last day of the conference, so I'm sure everyone like me, you're searching to make sure you can get home all right. Maybe you'll go to your favorite search engine, and you'll make sure that your flight is on time. And it's great. Look at Bing. They deliver right alongside the results a nice little structured widget that shows when my flight is arriving and departing, powered by third-party data, in this case from flightstats.com. I might even go and take a look at the weather in Seattle, although I know that the weather in Seattle won't be good. And yeah, it's going to rain all week, 61 and cloudy, not very good. But again, also from a third-party provider. So for Bing to deliver high-quality results and great experiences for their customers, they rely heavily on external data providers. And they spent a lot of effort, we work with the Bing team closely, in investing in their connections to these third-party providers. And it's hard because they have to worry about getting this external data in the right format to be used in their application, negotiating agreements, building a lot of infrastructure. When we build our own applications, we may not have as much time to spend as Bing did in getting all this external data we need. It's a challenge, and today I'm going to talk about something called the Windows Azure Marketplace, and in particular the data market. It's a service that we run that makes it easy for a whole variety of kinds of data consumers, be them developers or people building BI applications, end users or analysts, making it easy for them to discover and consume relevant data sources. So my name is Adam Wilson. I'm a senior program manager on the data market team. And today we're going to go through the entire life cycle of how data is published in the Windows Azure Marketplace, discovered by end users, and consumed in applications. We'll start by just looking a little bit about what the problems are in getting access to data. And we're actually going to take one sample data set and walk it through the process of publishing it on the marketplace so people can discover it. And then at the end, we're going to look at building an application that uses 3 different data sets that we have available in the marketplace today. And if you stick around to the end, you'll have learned a bunch of relevant data sets you could take home and use in your applications. And we also have a special offer for how you can use one of our data sets at a bit of a promotion. So if we go back and look at some of the problems that exist in getting access to data, one of the first problems is discovery and actually acquiring the content. Today, if you were looking for external data, you might go and search the web. You're looking for weather data or information on addresses. Oftentimes, you'll land on a web form like this. Submit your contact information, a salesperson will call you, you're not really sure what you're going to get or how long it's going to take you to get it. And once you've done that, who knows how you're going to get the data. Maybe you'll get a DVD shipped with it. Or maybe it'll be an FTP download that you have to build infrastructure to go and connect to. Maybe some providers have web services. But surely it's all in different formats and different schemas. And as a developer or someone operating on top of data, you're going to spend a tremendous amount of effort in consuming that. So the marketplace is really around to be an intermediary between 2 different sets of audiences. On the left-hand side, we serve consumers of data. These could be businesses that need it to drive decision-making that they're doing. It could be someone who's building an iPhone or a Windows Phone application. It could be someone in the academic space or in government. All of these diverse sets of data needs are underpinned by a certain need to get data in a constant format. And so we provide that. On the other side, we work with content providers. And we've worked with content providers that think of themselves as that. They might have billion-dollar businesses that they operate, and they're looking for a new channel to distribute their data. But we also work with independent data producers. These might be people who have amassed a large amount of data, but are looking for a platform that will let them begin to start selling that. Additionally, we've seen many companies that have built a business, but have built up a massive data as they did that. And they see opportunities to get incremental revenue by starting to monetize that data that they've built. So the role of the marketplace is really about providing that platform for providers to distribute their data, and also about giving them a channel to sell it. We expose data through a portal that we have where end users can discover it, and we also expose it through a set of integrations into products like Office and into SQL Server. so that developers and end users can find those data sets right where they need to use it. But then it's not just about the discovery aspect. It's also about how you monetize. So the marketplace also provides capabilities for subscription management. So providers can set prices for how they want to sell their data, and users can discover that and pay for it right at the time that they want to use it. This is all backed by the Azure platform. So rather than having each provider having to build a scalable infrastructure for delivering their data, they can use the marketplace and get that infrastructure as part of the service we provide. And similarly, from an app developer standpoint, you can connect right to Azure and use this data from inside your application, whether it be part of the Azure platform running or on any of a variety of different client devices. So when we go in a little bit deeper, one of the core pieces that we deliver is the concept of discovery. We know that end users care about getting their data from a trusted source. And we've heard that they like being able to buy data from Microsoft because they know that we're going to handle their payment information and process their subscription in a trusted fashion. So one of the core pieces we provide is that discovery aspect of finding data as part of the Microsoft brand and as part of the Microsoft ecosystem. The second key thing we provide is the ecosystem and connectivity. The data market is built on top of the OData protocol. So first of all, how many people have heard of OData here? Great, okay. So the great thing about OData is that all of the data we expose can be consumed across a wide variety of platforms and devices. With libraries from Windows Phone 7 to iOS on iPhone to Windows 8 applications, you can consume OData from a variety of different platforms. So from a publisher's perspective, it gives you very broad reach. And from the consumption angle, you're definitely going to be able to find high-quality libraries that make it easy for you to consume the application. And when we show you later on the Windows 8 application we're going to build, you'll see just how easy it is to consume this sort of data. So I also mentioned monetization as a key aspect. The Windows Azure Marketplace is available in over 28 different markets. So as a developer or a content provider, you can sell your data and not have to worry about many of the intricacies of international commerce. We will deal with things like currency translation and supporting payment instruments in various local markets. And again, the final thing is you don't have to worry about building the infrastructure to serve up your data. There are a lot of complexities to make data work across many different platforms. Things like authentication, about how you might deal with denial of service attacks, how you localize your data and access to that data. These sorts of services are just provided by the marketplace infrastructure, so our providers don't have to build it. So when we look at what's on the marketplace, there are really 4 different pieces of content. So when you go there later, you can go and get yourself oriented. The first 2 on the left-hand side are related to data. So we have a combination of both free data. These are made available by, for example, government organizations. We have data from the United Nations, from the US government and other governments as well, that are making their data available as part of open data initiatives. We also have premium content, and these are from content providers that are looking to make money off of their data and provide it in a way that makes it easy for developers and other users to consume. And you'll notice when you look at the marketplace, many of the premium data services also have some free tiers. So we built in a way with free trials and with low tiers of usage where you can begin to use the data and understand it before you even have to pay for it. So we have a number of those offerings as well. We also have a set of applications that are available on the marketplace. The first are cloud applications. These are applications built on the Windows Azure platform. Things like applications that would let you manage your relationships on Facebook or manage your customers, built by ISVs and hosted on Azure. So we also sell those on the marketplace. And the final ones are a set of what we call catalog applications. These are also built by ISVs, but is a listing of all of the solutions that ISVs have built on top of Azure. Today we're going to focus on the left-hand side, so on the data services that we have available through the marketplace. So what I want to do now is switch gears a little bit and talk about what are the actual kinds of data that you can publish. So the beauty of the data market is that regardless of what kind of data you have, we expose it in a consistent format. through OData, so it can be used across many different tools. But we don't require publishers to build their own OData service. We find that in many cases, publishers might already have an existing web service that they've built, and they want to leverage that investment as part of publishing on the marketplace. We also see that there are many cases where a provider has a database, and what they really want is to take that database and expose that to their customers. So with the data market, we support both SQL Azure databases that you can take and publish. In addition, web services. Now, I'll show you in a little bit what the experience looks like for onboarding a SQL Azure service to the marketplace. And it's a completely self-service experience that you can do yourself. With web services, we have a technical publishing team as part of the marketplace that will actually walk you through the process of helping you to onboard your service to be part of the marketplace. So we give you some help there as part of the submission process. So for the first demo, I'm going to show how to publish a data set to the marketplace. I'm going to do it with a very simple SQL Azure database I have. It's a list of a few technology companies and the products they sell. So nothing too extravagant, but it'll show the concepts nicely. So I'll start here by going to what we call the publisher portal. So this is available at publish.marketplace.windowsazure.com. This is where publishers can go to prepare their offers for submission, that is, connect to their data and provide the information about their offer. But also they can come back here to manage their offerings. We have information like reports, so that you can see how much money you've collected from your customers. We have various settings that you can set up for how you're going to be paid by Microsoft. We also have promotions capabilities, so you can set up various promotion codes that can be used and delivered to your customers to give them various discounts. So I've signed in here with my Windows Live ID as a publisher, and I'm going to use the first Connect tab. And here you can see these two different options we have for publishing data. So I mentioned that you can take an existing SQL Azure database and publish it, or you can connect to an existing web service. So when you click SQL Azure database, all you need to provide is information about the server to connect to in SQL Azure, the name of the database, and a username and password. And we generally recommend that you can create a separate SQL login just to use for the marketplace. So this is the information that the marketplace will use when it makes requests to your database. Because the way it works is we act as a proxy for all requests. The end customer who subscribed to your data set, they make a request, an OData request to the marketplace to get access to your data. And then we take that request and forward it on to your database. So I'm not going to actually fill in my connection information here because I already set up a database connection here with my company information. The next step I can do is I can go and create an offering. Now, an offering represents the view of that data that is exposed on the marketplace. So for example, you could have one database with some set of columns that you want to make available for free and a more expanded set of columns that you want to charge money for. So you can create two different offerings that use the same data source for that. So when I click Add Offering, we go into our offer creation wizard. And so there are a few steps here. You select what data source you're going to connect to. You can go and provide some information about contacts for how customers can get support and how the marketplace team can contact you. There's various offering details, and there's some pricing information you can submit. So in this case, I'm going to select my company information database. So at this point, the marketplace goes out and reads the metadata about your database. So here we can see I have two different tables, one called company info and one called product info. And from here, you can go and choose which columns you want to expose. So I could go into company information, and I could choose which columns I wanted to query on, which columns I want to allow end users to expose on. And I could go into this other one here. And I might say that I don't want one of these columns to be queryable. So maybe I didn't want the product to be queryable because I didn't think the indexing would be performant. So you can make all those changes here. You can also remove columns that you don't think are relevant for people. The second step is just pretty basic contact information. We have a technical contact for providing support for your offering. We do extensive monitoring of our offerings in the marketplace to track availability and performance. So in many cases, our automated monitoring infrastructure could involve your production support teams if there were issues with your offering. Similarly, the business contact information is used if there are any questions about the offering details, the pricing, or the terms of service for your offering. So the Details tab here allows you to control how the offering is going to appear on the marketplace itself. This is how consumers are going to see what you want to deliver. So you can give it a name. You can give it a description, both short and long. These are important because we use information from here to do indexing so that the search experience within the marketplace allows users to easily find what you're looking for. An offering identifier we'll see a little bit later, but this controls how developers are going to be able to interact with their service. This is actually the namespace that they're going to use here. And finally, we have support information. And unlike the information on the Details tab, this is information that customers can use to get support on your offer. And finally, there are a few other things you can do. You can add sample images and add an offering logo. So I'll just put in here one simple sample image and a logo here. And I'll select a category. So the Pricing tab allows you to specify whether users are going to have to pay for your offering, and if so, how much. We support one basic model for subscriptions on the marketplace. An end user can choose to subscribe to your data set, and there can be a price associated with that or not. So we have free subscriptions where customers don't have to pay for it. But we also have paid subscriptions where the customers will pay a fixed amount per month, say 10 euros a month. And that allows them to use a certain number of monthly transactions. Now, a transaction is one query against your data set. So you can set up different price tiers that allow you to give a small number of transactions a month away for free and higher numbers of transactions a month away at a paid price. So for example, I might want to give away 100 transactions a month for free here. And I'll choose to make that available in all of our supported markets. And then I could add another price tier. That was for an unlimited number of transactions a month. And I'll say that's going to be $100. So as a provider, I set up my account in the United States, so I price things in United States dollars. But if you set up an account in another one of our markets, you'll price it in your local currency, and the marketplace will translate that to other currencies when we make it available for sale there. There are a couple of other features I want to mention here. We support the concept of free trials. And free trials allow customers to get a 30-day look at your data without having to pay. And the way the trials work is the customer, when they subscribe, will enter their credit card or provide their other payment method. And they're not charged for the first month. But if they choose to keep it for longer than that 1 month, it will renew into that paid subscription that you have. And we also have the concept of requiring promotion codes for your offer, which you can set up here. Finally, there's a terms of use that you can specify. And the marketplace enforces that customers agree to this terms of use by selecting a checkbox when they go through the checkout process. So I'm just going to say this is a test offer. So finally, on the status review page, the marketplace takes all the details of this offering and runs some validations on top of it. Oh, I forgot the offering name here. Let me just do that here. So the marketplace takes that offering and does some validations on it. We've seen a lot of different providers who have published data, and we've come up with a set of rules that we know provide the best experience to customers. It involves things like relative sizes of the data, how normalization is done, whether indexes are provided on columns. So we run all of those validations as part of the publication process so that you can be assured that your data is going to have good results with customers. So we can see, for an example here, that I had one of my columns called data that wasn't indexed. And I had allowed that to be queried, which allows very advanced query operations to be done, some string operations. So here we're giving a warning that you probably don't want to expose data as a queryable column, or you want to add an index to it. So at this point, you could go back and fix it, but I've actually already completed an offering already, just before on stage. And I want to show two options we have available for providers to review their offering. So first of all, you can go and see a preview of your offering in the marketplace. So this is the consumer-facing view of the marketplace. This is what a customer would see if they searched for your offering. And so you can get a quick preview of how it's going to look, make sure your image looks good. You can go through and make sure you like your sample images and the details about what columns you're going to expose. So that's all available in the marketplace view. Separately, we have what we call the Service Explorer. So the Service Explorer is normally a tool for consumers, so they can easily begin to play with data before they build an application on top of it or use it in another tool. But in the case of publishers, this allows you to make sure that your API is functioning as you expect. So here I can run a simple query to get the list of all companies. And here we can see the 3 rows that are returned from my service. It was a small data set. So 3 ticker symbols and some data about that company. I can go and look at the products, and maybe I want to filter by one company ID there. And so here we can see all of the products for my first company, for Microsoft. So the Service Explorer is good because it gives you a bunch of information about your offer as well. So the first is what we call the service root URL. This is the equivalent of a connection string to a SQL database. And this is how, in a variety of tools, consumers are going to be able to access your offer. And you can see the URL contains my identifier as a publisher. It also includes that offering name that I gave as part of the publication process, in this case, company information. You'll notice at the end there's a preview URI segment. This is because I haven't finished publishing my offer. It's only available to me. Once this is published, the preview part is going to go away. Finally, you can also see the URL for this query here. And the great part about it is that it's, again, an OData URL. So I can copy this, and I can paste it right into Internet Explorer. And I can go ahead and try it. I'm just going to copy my account key as well. So here we can see the payload that comes back from the service. Now, we don't expect many people to program against the API directly in the browser. But the beauty of OData is that if you have an HTTP stack, you can program against this service, because it's just XML that comes back. And the query is just parameters that you add to the query string here. So here we can see the filter on company ID is equal to 1. So we spent about 10 minutes. We started with the SQL Azure database. What we did is we created some offering information for it. And we ended up with an OData service here that can be consumed by developers and by end users. Let's actually show how it can be used by an end user. How many people here are familiar with Power Pivot? OK, great. So Power Pivot is one of the first integrations we did with the data market. And so you'll notice in Power Pivot, there's a nice big button there that allows you to go and get data from the Azure data market. And what you have to provide is the URL of the data feed. So you remember I talked before about that service root URL up here. So this is the URL that in many tools you can use to access your service. So I paste that in here. And the second thing is you provide your account key for authentication. So again, you can go and get that from the portal here. So Power Pivot provides a nice, friendly way to go and, oh, let me make sure I got this. Oh, that's the wrong one. Here we go. So Power Pivot provides a nice way to go and select which tables you want to import, and of course you can rename them as you'd expect. And you get all the benefits of Power Pivot. You can set up this connection to go and refresh as part of SharePoint. You can have end users refresh it manually to go and pull in the new data. That all works on top of the connections from the Azure Data Market into Power Pivot. And then, you could go and build a pivot chart. Let's just look at the count of the number of products by company. And I think I need to create a relationship there. Okay, so very simply, someone could go and use this data set right inside of Power Pivot. So it's really simple to publish a data set. We have had many providers that have done this. We have over 100 different data sets available in the marketplace, including some Microsoft teams that have chosen to publish their own data through the marketplace. So I want to just look at a couple examples of Microsoft teams that have had problems about how they effectively deliver data to their customers and why they chose the marketplace as a way to distribute that. The first example is Microsoft Translator. Who here has heard of Microsoft Translator? Who's used Microsoft Translator here? Okay, yeah, a couple of people have used it. So Microsoft Translator is a service that Microsoft builds and runs that does machine translation between different languages. And there are a whole team of scientists that have built a statistical engine that does this sort of machine translation. And it's built on top of the big data platform that Bing uses, and on top of a huge number of sentence pairs to go and build up all this information. So they've done a whole bunch of research, and they have a whole bunch of infrastructure. What they needed was the last mile. How do they take this data and deliver it out to end customers? Now, they'd already done some initial integrations because Microsoft Translator is used in a set of products. For example, it's used in Bing Translator when you search on the Bing website. You can search in Office and do translations. They have an integration into Windows, so you can do machine translation there. Also, they sell to a whole set of huge websites that need to provide translations of user-generated content, sites like Facebook, eBay, and Amazon.com. Now, what they were looking for, though, was a way that they could take this IP that they had, the Microsoft Translator service, and make it available to a whole breadth of additional developers. They had people that were asking to build iPhone applications using it, or build applications for Windows 8, or integrate it into their corporate information systems. And the Translator team was thinking it was going to cost them a lot to invest in building libraries and integrations to allow a whole breadth of consumers to access their data. So they found a good match with the Azure Marketplace. And there are really three reasons that they chose to go with the Marketplace. The first is the broad reach. We take care of some of the integrations that the Translator team didn't have the ability to do themselves. So customers in a whole set of additional markets, and of all sizes, from small to large customers. Second, we provide them with integration and marketing capabilities. And finally, there's a flexibility for their customers they get. And not only can they use the OData interface, but there's a set of other interfaces, SOAP interfaces, and REST interfaces that can be used by these customers. So the other thing, just to remind you at the end, if you stop by at the front, we actually have a special offer from the Translator team. They thought TechEd Europe was a great audience for translation, and so they wanted to make a special offer available through the Azure Marketplace for a deal on their translation service. So if you come up at the end, I can scan your badge, and we'll send you more details on that translation offer. So the first example of a provider that uses the Marketplace is Microsoft Translator. We also have the Microsoft Search API. So Bing, for a long time, has had their portal to do search. They've also had a developer API available that provides rich information on web search, news. They have information on images. So a whole set of different vertical search APIs. They'd given that away for free, but the industry landscape was changing, and it was becoming more costly for them to deliver the service. So they were looking to come up with an opportunity where they could monetize some of the more high-volume users in line with the cost it was for them to deliver it. So they found the Azure Marketplace, which gave them an easy way to take their existing web search API, because they'd built that over a number of years, and to easily take that and expose it through the Marketplace to define pricing on it, and to change that pricing over time. And so they're using some of our features like free trials to move some of their existing users over to the marketplace platform. And they're using our paid models as well for the more high volume opportunities. So I'm actually going to show one demo that uses both that data set we just published, that company information data, in addition to the translation service and the search API, all in the context of a Windows 8 application. So let me switch over here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subscribe to the translation service. So for this, I'm just going to switch to the marketplace. So this is the main marketplace homepage where people can go and discover all of the available data. We can see that there are a number of featured data sets we have, and also we have a browse experience where you can go down and look at, for example, all of the free data sets or the data sets available by category. But I'm just going to search for translator. So here's the translator data set right here. And I can see a sample image, I can see the details, and I can see all the pricing information there as well. And the translation API is actually really simple. You just take in the text you want to translate and the to and the from language, and it's going to return you the text as well. So I'm going to sign up for the free offer here. So as part of this, I read and agree to the terms and hit sign up. If it was a paid offer, you go and enter your credit card at that time. And then I can go into the Service Explorer. This was the same Service Explorer you saw when we published our own offer, that company information offer. I can also use it as a consumer of the data now to go and build a query on top of this service. So I'm going to say, hello from TechEd Europe. And I'm going to translate that to French. Now, the translator service will do automatic language detection, but you can also explicitly provide the input language if you want to. So when we run this query, it's sent from the Service Explorer here to the translation service, where it does the translation, and it brings back the results here. In this case, just a simple one-row response with the text that's translated. So if you're building an application, the Service Explorer is an easy way just to get a sense of how the service works before you go and invest in building your app. OK, so now I'm going to switch to Visual Studio and show you a bit about how this Windows 8 application would work. And for that, I'm going to need a bit of information. Again, I'll go back to the Contoso Company Information Service that has the service root URL. And just as in PowerPivot, this is what we use in Visual Studio to set up that connection. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to add a service reference. So there's support in Visual Studio to add service references directly against OData services. So when I type in that URL, Visual Studio reads the metadata. And here I can see for this particular service, there are those two entities, those two different tables that I can consume, the company and the product information. And I'll give it a namespace here. OK, so now that I've added that data source as a service reference, I built a simple adapter class here. And there's just a layer on top of that proxy that was generated. And the reason I did this was just to allow for some caching of the data and also to abstract away the async model for accessing services in Windows 8 applications. So there are just a couple things I need. The first thing is the account key, which I got from the Service Explorer, just as I did before. And the second thing is that service root URI, which I've already pre-filled in with that information. So we have a method here called init company info list. And this is what actually goes and reads the data. And it's just a few simple lines. The first thing I do is I instantiate an instance of the container here. So this is the actual service client that allows me to make calls to the service. And the second thing is I set the credentials. The data market supports a few different kinds of authentication depending upon your scenario. The simplest one we support is HTTP basic authentication, which almost any HTTP library should be able to do for you. And in this case, you can pass the account key as the password for basic authentication. So you can pass in your account key, and that will work directly as the password. And then the final thing I do is I actually populate a list with that full list of company information. And this looks like this because we're invoking it asynchronously. So we actually down here grab the client and call toList on it at the very end. But the result is that it goes into a company information list. So this showed how we could add a service reference against the company data source, and that would allow us to consume that. We also did a similar thing for the Bing search and for the Microsoft Translator service. And again, their APIs are exposed in a very similar fashion. So we use the account key and the service root URI. Now in this case, it's the Bing search service root URI instead of the company information one that we did. And similarly, we instantiate the container, and we set the credentials to the account key. But here you can see, rather than just getting a list of data, we can actually invoke a particular operation on that service. So this operation is called the image operation. And so it allows you to pass in a query for a particular set of images and a market. So this is the country in which you want the results for. It exposes safe search to filter out adult things, so I'll set it for strict for this demo. And there's a set of advanced settings that you can do to specify lat long and additional filters you want to happen on those images. So just a few lines of code, and you can bring back those set of images. So same thing for translation. We also enabled. But let's go ahead and see how this looks here. So the first thing the application does, it goes and reads that company list, and it shows the 3 different companies I had from the service that I published. Then the user can go and drill down, maybe select Microsoft here. And it goes, and once I select one of these products like Microsoft Office, it will go and query the Bing search image service to retrieve the most popular images for that particular keyword, that particular product, Microsoft Office. So the second thing we can do here is, let's say that I wanted to see this in Spanish. I can click that, and it's going to translate both the text and it'll change the image searches to look for them in that particular language. Now, in the case of Microsoft, these images actually look pretty much the same depending upon the locale that I selected. But I was playing around with this, and I know that for Google, if you select Android in English, it might be as you expect. You get some images of Android, but when you hit Japanese and you go back to Android, it's actually a very different set of images. So Bing Search does a really good job here of providing localized results that might be more appropriate to the market you're in. So building a Windows 8 application, I didn't go into the details of how to build the app itself, but the connection to the data was very simple. There are great libraries that ship as part of Windows 8 that allow developers to connect to OData services, and that works against the whole breadth of services we have in the marketplace. Services that might be published, like the company information, and also things that do translation and image search and any of the other 100 ones that we have. Okay, so there are a couple things I want to mention here. The first one is we have a special offer for Translator that I'll show you once you scan your badge. The second thing is, if you are interested in being a publisher, you're welcome to go to the publisher portal and sign up there and begin experimenting with offers. The beauty of it is you can go in and actually create an offer without publishing it. So if you want to see what your particular data would look like, you can do that, and with the preview functionality, it's a private version of that only you can see. And third, I'd recommend going to the home page. There's a whole set of information available there on how you can on how you can build applications that use this data and how you can use it across any of our integrations, like Power Pivot, or directly in Excel, or in products like SQL Server. So with that, we have about 15 minutes left, and then questions. If people have questions, we can do them now. If you're interested in seeing more demos, I can show a few more demos of how a data market can be used in other applications. How many people here use, would you like to see an Excel demo? I showed you Power Pivot. We have another good demo with Excel. Any Excel? OK, let me show one more demo of Excel, and then we'll take some questions. So when we first built our integration with the data market, we had the Power Pivot integration, but we found for many end users, they wanted a very simple experience to just get data right into Excel on the grid. So we have, right within Excel, even if you don't have Power Pivot installed, a data tab that will show up on the ribbon here. And, oh, this is the, I just installed Windows 8, so I don't have the add-in installed. So I'm actually not going to show you that, but this is what I get for installing Windows 8. But if you go to the Windows Azure Marketplace, you can click that giant button that says download, and you'll be able to see the add-in. It's a similar experience to Power Pivot, but it doesn't require the Power Pivot add-in to be installed, and it allows you to land data on the grid. So actually, I'm not going to show that, but if you're interested, you can come up afterwards and see that. So were there any questions? I saw one question over there on the right here. Yes, so we've seen providers deal with this issue, and I'll just repeat it. So the question was, if I have data that doesn't change very frequently, so it stays static for a long amount of time, if I offer a free trial, someone would be able to just download all the data through the API, and then they wouldn't necessarily need to pay for the service. And so they would get more than I anticipate. So we've seen providers deal with this in a couple of different ways. The first way is that we allow you to specify a smaller number of transactions that can be used during the trial period. So with that, you can say that maybe only 100 queries you can execute during the trial period. And the query will return only 100 rows. So if you had a 2 million row data set, you could set 100 queries at 100 rows. So that's only 10,000 records someone's going to get back out of your 2 million. So that's one way that providers will limit the amount of information someone will get for free during a trial period. Yes, if a customer would only need a small amount, that might satisfy them. Something that other providers do is they will create two offerings. So they'll have one offering that's paid, it's only paid, and it includes all of the data, the really valuable data. And they'll create a second offering, and that's the one that they might give away for free. And that second offering, they can restrict it either by only having a subset of the rows, so maybe only a little bit of data. So if it was a weather data set, maybe it would only be weather for one particular zip code. Or they can expose another offering that only has a subset of the columns. So maybe it only has the daily weather forecast, and it doesn't have information on humidity or high and low temperatures. So something like that. So those are a few ways that we've seen providers limit the amount of data that is exposed. The question is spatial data supported? So we do have providers that expose spatial data through the marketplace. So they'll expose lat and long. Providers that have their own web services that can handle spatial queries, that works fine. But with SQL Azure, we don't support the spatial queries, but we do support exposing just the lat and long and that sort of information. Could you add polygon information to a data set? Well, you could add the information to the data set, but if you wanted to do queries like intersection and those sorts of things, we don't support those for the SQL Azure databases. There was a question there in the back. Yes, yeah, you can make available just a standard database. So you can put it into SQL Azure, and then if there's some tables you don't think are relevant, you can filter them out. We do have requirements, as I showed you before, around some of the indexing. We want to ensure that we have highly performant queries through the marketplace, so we require that you index the columns that you're going to allow end users to query on. So there's some requirements around indexing there. We also have some maximum requirements on the size of the data per row. So you're not going to be able to deliver gigabytes of data through a row in the marketplace. But we found for many providers that choose to expose text of articles, or even in the case of translations, the lengths that we expose are usually sufficient for them. Any other questions? Yes. Great question. How could you wire up an existing OData feed to the marketplace? So as part of the publishing portal, if you select that you want to connect to an existing web service, there are a number of different options here. You can select connect to a REST or a SOAP service, but you can also select connect to an OData service. And in that case, when we onboard it, we will just pass through the OData requests directly from the customer to your OData service. And what we take care of there is we do the throttling to prevent denial of service. We count the transactions so that we can enforce the number of transactions someone paid for. And we also take care of all the authentication. But all of the querying is done by your OData service. Anything else? Okay, if you have any other questions, you can feel free to come up here at the end. Also, if you are interested in the translator offer, just come on up here and I'll scan your badge and we'll send you an email with those great details. But thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day.